in a minute. Okay, so here we go. Welcome, everybody. I always forget this bit, so I'm going to do it now. My name is Helen Jewell. I'm the chair of the IAF England and Wales, and that's probably the last time I'm going to be saying that because I'm on, the end of my 2 years of being the chair. Anyway, we'll talk a bit more about the board shortly. But this evening's agenda is as follows. Bit of a welcome, which I think we've started to do by asking you all to just introduce yourselves as well in the chat box there. We are going to have our 2022 board report and a bit of space for any questions, should there be any. Then again, if we feel like it and if we've got time and enthusiasm, we'll do a bit of breakouts. We have a few questions to sort of give you to have a think about, and then we will do a bit of reflecting, closing, and moving on afterwards to a bit of a social again. Should you wish to stay around, put a Christmas hat on, and maybe sort of, be in competition with Adrian for the most fun lights. Oh, here we go.
Christmas hats.
So we've got Adrian and Paul already with their Christmas hats and jumpers and various things. So that's for a bit later. In the meantime, to introduce ourselves, in case you don't know, we're IAF England and Wales, part of IAF Worldwide. As you may know, hopefully, by virtue of the fact you are all here, we are a participatory organisation whose remit is really to promote the power of facilitation. I really like this sentence at the end. Good facilitation can change the way people think and act and ultimately support them to positively change the world around them. So I really like that sentence. There are 65 members in 65 different countries. And apparently there are 1,840 members at the moment. And this is a bit of a map of where we are all around the world. There are a number of special interest groups, and I believe the latest one is also online facilitation. So they are, I'm not going to try and say these, but special interest groups in Portugal, France, Spain, I believe, or Spanish speaking, future of the foresight facilitation, social inclusion, visual facilitators, and online facilitation. So there's quite a lot going on around the world. This is us, IAF England and Wales. And one of the things that we do quite a lot of is IAF meetups, which we're going to talk about in a bit. And that's why we have this lovely hashtag that we have on Twitter and all over social media, hashtag IAF meetup. So definitely use that if you are going to be talking about us. And where are we? Who are our members? So again, I did a check-in before as I put this board report together, and we now have 81 members. So last year we had 88, so we are a little bit down from last year, and we have 19 CPFs. In case anybody thinks my geography's gone wonky, that's not the case. I recreated the map and realised we had one IAF member, IAF England and Wales member, who's actually living near Lagos. So I thought it was only fair to try and put Africa next to the United Kingdom on the map. We also have a member who is in Copenhagen in Denmark. So we're not all in England and Wales. Interesting to know. And we are, things run behind the scenes. The swan on the top and the feet sort of paddling underneath is the leadership team. And there are 14 of us keeping things going. I did try and look for photos, and I thought, actually, that's just going to make this all a bit squashed. So I thought I'm just going to put people's names up here. And as I run through this list, some of you are here this evening, so maybe you can give us a wave. So Lee, where are you? You're somewhere. Helen, that's me. Hilary, I saw you come in the room. Kat. I know Camilla's not here. Kerry and Penny aren't either. Adrian. Q, great looking glasses there. Paul K.
In the jumpers.
In the jumper. Okay, there's some definite rivalry going on here. Paul B. Megan, who's not here. Nicola, Caroline, and Vic. And we're also supported, although there's a core leadership team, we are supported by a number of other people who aren't really on the leadership team as regular members, but they have been helping out with meetups. So that's Tanya, who helps with the Wales meetups. Ellie has been helping with the London meetups. Jane and Ed have been helping with the Midlands meetups. And we also have Nikki and Pilar, who run the podcast, and we'll be talking a bit more about the podcast in a minute. So those people aren't necessarily part of the regular leadership team, but they are part of how things run and to make things run smoothly. And welcome, Paul. I can see you've just come in. That's good timing.
Hello.
So the last year we've had a board of 7 people, had to count that then. Myself, Hilary, Kat, Nicola, Lee, Camilla and Gary until May. But for the next coming year, we have an almost completely new board. So I'm going to introduce them to you now. And one of them, at least one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them are here at the moment. So for 2023, the board will be Kat, again, I won't ask you to wave at me again, Kat, Jane Clift, who is not able to join us this evening, Paul Z. Jackson. Paul, would you like to say hello?
Hello, good evening.
Paul Brand again, who's already said hello, and Penny Pullen, who's also not able to join us this evening, but they will be the board for the next year. So yes, welcome new board, very exciting times. And I'm just going to move on. So we're going to talk a bit about the meetups, which is basically the kind of mainstay of what we've been doing. I've collated a nice load of pictures, which are mostly the most interesting ones are definitely Adrian's meetups. Adrian, I think, does the most to take great photos on Zoom and put on all sorts of different outfits. So I think props and all the rest of it as well. So yeah, we've got quite a nice selection of Zoom photos there. We've also, I did try and squeeze in a few, there's a couple of Lego ones down there, Paul Kelly, you will recognise from the Southwest meetup. So we have, although most of the meetups are still on Zoom, we have made a sort of gentle start into doing on face-to-face meetups again. So I've done one, I've hosted one in the Southwest, 2 actually in the Southwest. And Hilary, have there been any in the Midlands that are face-to-face? I know you were talking about it.
In the end, no.
Oh,
We
okay.
did try and organise one, but we didn't quite get enough people. So there might be one in the new year.
Okay.
Potentially.
And I believe there has been an in-person one in London as well, at least one. Yes, Martin, you hosted a coffee, didn't you?
There was at least 2 coffees, and I think there was a learning meetup that I missed.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so we are starting slowly to kind of experiment with going back to in-person meetups and just to sort of see what the interest is and yeah, just to see how they go. So, as I said, they're mostly still online. We still have them, even though they are online, in mostly these regional groups. So we've got We Are Northern, the Midlands, London and South East, South West and Wales. And we also have the UK and Ireland virtual coffee meetups. Of our meetup members, so we've got 1,044 registered meetup members. So some of them come regularly, some of them come occasionally. And yeah, there are meetups as events for people to sign up to all through all the months, all the weeks. There's quite a lot. I don't know what the rotating schedule is at the moment, but I think pretty much every week there's something going on. And there are some ad hoc sessions that have been going on. And I'm just going to ask Paul Kelly if you'd like to say a little bit about the meetup this afternoon or this morning. How did that go?
You got me worried because it was like, what am I going to talk about? Oh yeah, that thing that happened very early this morning. Yeah, we had about 18 people in. We pitched it out as an idea to do a bit of reflection on the last year, both personally, professionally, collaboratively. And then we spent, it was a good 2-hour session, although we managed to save 10 minutes at the end. We did a bit of work around looking at moving forward, what are our, not so much goals, but kind of things that people might like to touch base on, might like to share, collaborate, network, accountability groups. and kind of generate conversations around that. So that was myself and Caroline ran that session this morning.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. And so in the past, we've had, if there is the enthusiasm and, impetus to want to sort of run an additional meetup, then we have been doing those as well. And there's a few statistics for you to look at. I don't know how easy these are to actually see on screen, but you can see that people joining Meetup, we've throughout every month pretty much, we've got new people joining, which is really nice to see. And interestingly, quite a bit of a spike last month. So we had 11, I guess, or so people join last month. So it's nice to see that people are joining all the time. And then this second one down here over the last year shows how many RSVPs we're getting. So again, we've still, at our maximum, we've had like 80 odd people responding. And then less so down here in December. Again, last month, there was quite a lot of enthusiasm for November, it seems. So we're still getting quite a lot of people coming to our meetups. And yes, there's a lot of interest in being part of the wider community, which is really nice to see. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about each of the meetups. So the London and South East, as we've just said. So London and South East, I saw a question floating into the chat, where is Oxford? I believe Oxford comes under this, the London and South East. And mostly they're in London and Winchester, as I think is still correct. And has been in the past a mixture of evening learning, evening drinks in London, but I think that has sort of changed a little bit over the last couple of years. And we have had Jonathan, Gary, Lee, Camilla and Ellie, most recently Ellie Westgard Flynn has joined in, I believe, with some of these London meetups, organising them. I don't know, Lee, could you tell us a little bit about some of the Winchester meetups? How have they been going?
I can. So varied, I think, is the best way to say that they happen. We have our regulars, ever increasingly dispersed from any of us being in Winchester, which is none of us, to people coming from different areas of the world. Got people joining us from Sri Lanka and Indonesia and India, but mostly by topic or relationship. So, but my regulars like Ed and who else have we got now? I've gone blank. But yeah, we've got and Claire and a few others, and it's growing locally. But actually, the virtual nature of it has been fantastic because people are taking time out of their virtual working ways that they've got set up anyway, so that they can contribute. So yeah, it's been good. We're looking at doing some in-person ones when we get into the new year to kind of like kick things off. But we said about maybe alternating them throughout, like one in person per quarter or something like that, so that we could get a bit, people can travel and probably do it in an evening rather than in the morning. But yeah, really good, quite well attended. Regularity is always on our side, so the more regular we put them, the more that people come.
Cool, thank you. And we talked a little bit about the London meetups. Martin, you just mentioned them. Has anybody, I'm looking around the Zoom room to see if anybody is Southeast based and has been to any of the London meetups? Maybe not. It's just you, Martin.
Well, I can say that it was actually a morning coffee with just me and one other person that we had face to face, and an evening drinks that had about 8 of us, I think, which was lovely. You were there, weren't you, Carrie?
Yes, I think it was rather impromptu because we had an ex-London-based facilitator who had a flying visit into town. Right. So we sort of all assembled in the interest of seeing Susanna. But yes, I think the London ones, again, I've not been able to join a morning coffee recently, but it was always a really great start to the day when I could do it more regularly. And it was usually 8:30 at Caravan in King's Cross. And again, for the evening drinks, I don't know if they'll come back. We used to do them at the Parcel Yard in King's Cross as well. But I think that was mostly because the host.
Well, I believe that there was an afternoon learning meetup that I missed. And I believe that it was at the Calthorpe project on Gray's Inn Road, where we used to have them, where the previous meeting room in a porter cabin got lifted away. And I thought they didn't have a meeting room anymore. But now they've got a new porter cabin that's even better than the first one.
Ooh.
I think
I'll
that's-
just check on Meetup for you, Paul, and see where they are in London these days.
I think you're right, Martin. That was in-person one at the Calthorpe project, and I think that's the one that Camilla and Ellie ran.
Yeah, that's right. I think there's only been a handful, only those 3 or 4 face-to-face, and as it happens, they have all been in King's Cross still.
So Londoners, watch this space. But yes, unfortunately, neither of them are here to tell us more. But yes, I think that's the flavour of a lot of the meetups, that we are kind of experimenting with returning to in-person. The North, Adrian, can you tell us a bit about the We Are Northern meetups?
Yeah, we're never returning to in-person. That's easy. The North is anything above Birmingham, just as everyone kind of in London understands it to be in terms of geography. But we've also reinterpreted that in Northern is a state of mind, not just a postcode. So if you feel you can claim a link to being Northern because you like proper beer, or you like walking, or you moan about the weather and you always got your big coat on, you're Northern. You're very welcome to come along. And that point about experimentation. So yeah, we've been we meet last Thursday of every month. And then we also drift the time of day that we meet on as well, because we're aware that not everyone can do a morning or lunchtime or an afternoon. So every time we bump it across, and we try and alternate actually building in a notional learning theme with a general check-in with each other as we go along as well. So if you've been following the IAF meetup hashtag on social media, after we do our meetups, as well as everyone else does, we encourage people to share thoughts and reflections on some of the key things that came out of it. So that's where you get to see what Helen's very kindly referred to in terms of our Zoom selfies, but also some of the key points of encouragement and challenge for each other that way as well.
Thanks,
Enough.
Adrian.
Can I stop now? Yes.
You can stop. Yeah. Great. That sounds good. No, and I've been to a few of the We Are Northern meetups. I'm not sure what my excuse is. I do like proper beer, so maybe that's my in. But yeah, they're always good fun.
Once, Helen, that's good enough.
Say that again, Paul.
I saw you in a pub in the North once. You're in.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to get a reputation here if I'm not careful. Thank you. Okay, next we have Southwest. That's me. Although the last meetup that we had, or the second from last one, was hosted by Paul Kelly, who did some Lego serious play with us, also in a pub. So Paul, do you want to say any more about the Lego? I'm trying to remember the activities we did.
Yeah, we just talked through the medium of bricks.
Okay.
And we looked perfectly at home in a pub with a drink and Lego, surrounded by other supposable adults.
It was a really nice session, and it was the first one that we'd actually done face to face as well. And it was a small meetup, but it was really nice to do. And prior to that, they've been on Zoom, and we've tended to take a fairly sort of organic focus. People log on and we see what people want to talk about. So we've tended not to have specific topics, but I think, going forward, we might try and find some more specific topics and maybe do some more sort of learning meetups as well. So that's a bit of a plan for the Southwest. And Midlands, Hilary, tell us more about the Midlands and East.
Oh, Midlands and East. I always forget that bit. Hi, everyone. Well, we sort of have monthly coffee meetups. Numbers vary quite a lot. After the conference, a few of us have set up a Midlands-ish WhatsApp group to try and stay in touch and do a bit of networking. That's been quite good. We are planning to have some in-person things. Our grand plans of a kind of afternoon learning meetup didn't quite come off because everyone's really busy trying to do their work and stuff. So maybe we'll just do something easy and sociable, like go to the pub sometime in the new year. I might organise that, to which you would all be very welcome. And we might tie that in if there's still a plan. I don't know if there's still a plan to have a leadership team meeting in or around Birmingham. We might sort of tie it all in together if possible. That's it really. Everyone's very welcome if you're anywhere near or on Zoom. you can come.
Thank you. And you've been supported by Jane Mitchell
Yes,
and Ed Watson.
Jane and Ed have been very helpful. So thanks to them.
Cool. Thanks, Hilary. And Wales, I don't think we've got anyone from the Wales gang here this evening. But as far as I know, they have all been online, although I have a feeling the next one they're going to try and do in person. And that is Megan, who's been helped by Tanya. So they happen on Friday morning once a month. And yes, I have a feeling there's a move towards trying to do an in-person one soon as well. And so Scotland and Ireland are separate chapters, but we support them in the sense that we have the meetup platform and they host, or they can advertise their events on there. So I have to say some of this information might not be completely up to date, but Steve Yorkstone is the chair of IAF Scotland and he runs those meetups. And then David Bishop is the chair of IAF Ireland and he runs those meetups as well. So that's, yes, they've got their own little meetup bits if you want to go and explore Scotland and Ireland. And we have been continuing the UK and Ireland virtual coffees. And we've tried a sort of rotating structure with Scotland and Ireland for this. And I think one of the challenges for us has been to find a sort of host to keep on top of these meetups. So we've taken the decision that we are going to cancel the ones, the sort of the next ones for the moment, unless there is anybody that really feels very passionately that they would like to host some of these. Because as you can imagine, it's quite sort of intensive finding enough people to be able to host all the meetups, and we do have a number of other ones that we've just talked about. So for the moment, we are not going to be continuing with these, given that a lot of the other ones are online. So yes, unless you feel strongly about it, please feel free to put your hand up and offer to host them, and that's fine. We are open to suggestions, but they won't be continuing for the moment. But we have, you know, they have been hosted by a variety of different people, and they've, I think at the height of when, you know, the pandemic, when people were really only online, we did have some huge numbers of people coming along, and I think they did find it a really supportive environment to be in. I think more recently, we've had a lot fewer people attend them. And again, I think, as Lee was saying, because everything's been online, we've had a lot more people from all over the world, which has been really nice. But yes, watch this space. And now we're going to tell you a bit about the conference, because I think that the conference is the sort of thing perhaps we're quite most proud of this year. It was quite a lot of work to put together, but we were all very pleased with it in the end. So I've just taken a few I went through the photos and felt like I could keep going I could create hundreds of slides for all the photos, because we've actually got some really good ones, but I tried to keep it down to a couple. So yes, the organising team was myself, Kat, Camilla, Paul, Adrian, Paul, Caroline and Lee. And as for those that were able to attend, you'll know that it was a hybrid conference over a couple of days, 2 days in Birmingham. So yeah, there in the middle, you've got some of us, the organising team, and on the right there, that's at the end of the conference, us all posing for a photo. And I tried to capture a few moments of the, you know, the tech in the room with the laptops, an actual, you know, in-person session there. That's Kerry, I think. And we had our lovely Miro board, or Miro. I don't know if the decision's been made yet about the Miro versus Miro. That was a bit of a theme. What do we call it?
Miro.
Miro.
According to the company who runs it, their new adverts say Miro. It is the Spanish word for to see or to look.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, it is as settled as the toilet roll direction.
Yeah,
But carry on calling it whatever you like. It's a debate.
Lidl is Lidl in Ireland by their adverts, and IKEA is IKEA. So they've changed it.
Okay, moving on. So we had a
Swedish is IKEA.
Oh, there we go. IKEA. Well, we could like, let's just call it Fred perhaps for this evening, so we don't trip over. Anyway, we had a beautiful digital whiteboard that was set up by Paul Kelly We also used a lot of, in the room resources, and Kat, I think, brought a lot of pinpoint stuff along. So that's just one of the things we had there. And the lemon did become a bit of a feature of the hybrid conference. So the lemons were brought along by Kat. I'm going to ask you to remind me who they were. The Chouperie.
Pip and Catherine with the Chouperie stuff, yeah.
Chouperie, so Pip and Catherine, they did a session and they put lemons everywhere. As far as I know, we didn't get into too much trouble for leaving lemons all over Conference Aston, the venue. And because we had a participant cam that sometimes we needed to put down on the table, we decided to, I can't remember whose idea this was, to focus it on something interesting or potentially interesting rather than just a blank wall. So the lemon with the sunglasses on it became the thing that the participant cam was looking at, was filming when it wasn't filming participants. That's what the lemon's about. And Paul Nunes-Dea, who is actually not an IAF England and Wales member, but I think Portugal or Spain, he came to the conference and he did a couple of really nice videos for us. And I thought it'd be really nice to just see one of those now, because I think they're only about 3 minutes. So hopefully you can all hear this. Yep.
Shut here, say goodbye. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, hopefully that's given you a little bit of a flavour of what it was like if you weren't able to come. And the couple of things that maybe jumped out there is that the raffle, we had a raffle that Camilla organised, and the stuff you saw on the side that was from Pinpoint Facilitation. Keith donated a huge amount of stuff. So we had, yeah, the raffle was kind of the culmination we did right at the end, which was really nice. And yeah, it was just a really nice couple of days of yeah, good old hybrid like you've never seen it before. And Paul Brand was definitely responsible for sorting out all the tech. Paul, any top tips from the hybrid tech?
Painful though it was to sort it out blind on the morning of the conference, Last week, I had to suddenly make a meeting hybrid at 2 days' notice, and I had it set up and working in 20 minutes. So the second time you do it is a lot less painful than the first time.
Thank you. Simon, I can see your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I wasn't involved in organising this, although I was involved in one of the sessions. I think it was probably the best learning experience of the year, that conference, on several levels. I thought it was most interesting as a hybrid event, but it was also lovely to see people, because I did one day face-to-face and one day online. Lovely to see people, but I really think you deserve some congratulations. It was a blooming good event, that.
Thank you, Simon. Yeah, I think we all learnt a lot from that, actually. Paul Brand, I know you've actually written a blog about all the tech stuff, so maybe you could pop that in the chat. And I know that Session Lab also wrote a blog and used some of our photos. They wrote a blog about hybrid, so I'll try and find the link to that because it's quite an interesting blog. Okay, so still feeling pleased with ourselves? Oh no, I don't want to play that again. Hang on. We're now going to talk about the podcast, which is another thing we are very proud of. And Pilar, I'm going to hand over to you for this bit.
Well, all I can say is that Nikki Wilson's been doing loads of work and she's coming up with loads of ideas and lots of guests. So a big hurrah. And that's it. We've managed to do once a month, except for maybe 1 month in the summer or maybe, I don't know. I think we skipped a month or maybe at the beginning of the year. But yeah, there it is. It's still going. So I hope you'll listen to it every now and then. Yes.
Thanks, Pilar. And am I right? I know I double checked this with you because I was thinking that's a big number. There's been 10,619 downloads since the podcast started in October 2019, and 50 episodes. Or are we on the 50th, perhaps?
50th coming up next week.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
And as Pilar said, it's Pilar and Nikki. I've helped out a little bit, but not recently. And I think this shows the top listened to podcasts, I believe. So which one got the most listens? Was it this one about neurodiversity by the looks of it? So for FS44.
Yes, the hybrid, the one on the conference was also very popular.
Yeah,
hybrid conference. Yeah, so that's
okay.
nice. They're all very similar. The oldest ones have more downloads. I think it's really good that it keeps growing. I think that's the main thing, is that people are still listening and we're picking up people. And the Twitter account is very popular, even though we don't do anything with it.
And we had a new logo as well, which I've put in the bottom left. That was something else that's happened this year.
From IAF Global, yeah.
Can I just confirm it wasn't me listening to myself on the neurodiversity one 348 times?
We believe you, Paul. Okay, so what else have we got? A few more statistics here. So yes, you can see these are the sort of most popular ones here. This event organizer to facilitate, from event organizer to facilitator of facilitators. There's one about sustainable development goals, and this one here about having a conversation with how to have a conversation with clients about whether a workshop should be in person or online. One about asynchronous communication, and this was the most recent one, wasn't it? 2 lenses on photography and facilitation. So those are the last 5, I think. And then, got a few, 3,648 listens this year, which is quite exciting. So yeah, go podcast team. And as Pilar said, Nikki Wilson's been doing an awful lot of hard work, and you don't often see what happens behind the scenes, but having worked on a bit of the podcast, I know it takes quite a lot of time and effort to do all the editing and set it all up. So,
and we're looking forward to having you back.
I will be rejoining the podcast team next year. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that also. And just to remind you, we are on social media. So yes, Pilar's mentioned Twitter. So we do the Facilitation Stories does have a separate Twitter handle to IAF England and Wales. We've got 5,500 followers. We've also got the LinkedIn group, Facebook and Instagram as well. which I don't think gets used very much, but we do have an Instagram account. And just to sort of remind you, I suppose, that the other thing that IAF England and Wales does is to support people to go through this professional development path. So to be part of the community, you don't have to be an IAF member, but a lot of us are. And then as you kind of climb this little ladder, you can become an endorsed facilitator. I was trying to find out how many endorsed facilitators we have in IAF England and Wales, and I don't actually know. I think we might have none currently, but I think we have had one in the past. We've got certified professional facilitators, and I believe we have a couple of masters, and I'm trying to remember, I think in the room, who's a master? You are, Simon, aren't you? And Martin, okay. And then I also believe we have a couple of, I can't even say it properly, emeritus.
I worked with Martin Farrell this week. He's emeritus.
Okay.
I'm not sure who else is.
Thanks, Martin. I'm not too sure. Simon?
Just to say that I'm one of the people who certifies the endorsed facilitators, and I can announce that we have at least 2 further England and Wales based endorsed facilitators as of yesterday.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, hot off the press. Thanks for that, Simon.
I don't know the total either, but we've literally just endorsed 2 more.
Wonderful. Okay, that's always really nice to hear. Thank you. Okay, and now on to the bit you've been looking forward to. Sorry, I put last year's up as well as...
Oh, was that last year's?
This is last year's, and I'm going to move on to the one that you can talk through.
So we started this year trying to spend some of the money that we had in the bank last year and failed. Miserably, in fact, because we ended up with more money in the bank at the end of last year than we started with. So yeah, there we go. There's not a lot to say, really. It's kind of a bit self-explanatory. We've had the fees bit relates to the conference, so what we took from the conference, the little pittance of an amount we get from IAF Global there, less this year than last year because of the exchange rates. So 397.70, and we've spent on the conference just under £5,000, I think. Probably a little bit more actually when you take into account all the fees from Eventbrite and PayPal, which I haven't separated out from everything else because it seems a bit pointless. And the meetups and the Zoom charges and the insurance, which is due for renewal. Communication is SurveyMonkey, and podcast, I think, there's some hosting, some fees, I think, related to the podcast in there, and then some random other things that I've put on there. The conference, we desperately tried to reduce the bank balance a little bit by subsidising a few places for the conference and offering anniversary places. We did that, but we've still ended up the year with just nearly £7,500 in the bank. So yeah, the conference, our aim was to break even on the conference, and we yes, it is nice, Martin, I'm not really complaining, but we smashed that, and we did more than break even. So I think we offered 5 bursary places for the conference this year, and we then gave 2 or 3 people, I think it might have been a couple of people, an additional £50 to subsidise their travel and accommodation. So we could have pushed that a little bit further if we wanted to. So maybe it's something to bear in mind for next year. Paul, you have your hand up.
This is a question, and I could ask you this in the first board meeting, Kat, but I'll ask it here in the bigger form.
Yes.
Sometimes it seems odd to have a closing balance on the IAF, but one of the things we have to do, presumably, is each year for the conference, we must have to pay some deposit or something for the venue way in advance. And so that during the year, the low point is when you've just paid the conference deposit and you haven't got any money back in yet.
Yeah.
Right. So that was correct. That's what I'm saying. So it's not that we're rolling in money in a sense. We almost have to have a balance, or you can't arrange a conference.
Yeah, absolutely. But the balance has consistently been higher the last few years because we charged for the online conference in 2020, was it? And obviously there were no overheads related to that. So there is, I mean, Global have challenged, I think, the amount that we do have in the bank as a chapter, even though it's still a relatively small amount of money overall. But we just said, well, look, it's there, and we can subsidise and pay for things. Actually, I think Camilla is owed some money that I haven't paid to her for one of the meetup venues or something. So there is that option of being able to use, and that's something we can talk about with the board and the leadership team a bit as well. Yeah.
If I may, I recall, I can't remember when it was, but I do recall at one point, I'm not sure if we were deliberately trying to build up reserves or whether we built up the reserves by accident because we had such a successful conference. But I do remember at the time we were intending to keep the reserves and use the reserves to be able to put down a deposit on a residential conference. And if we were to put down deposit on a residential conference with 30, 40 bedrooms or something, then this kind of money actually doesn't go very far. You really need this kind of money in order to be able to reserve a residential venue for a conference.
Yeah.
Don't want it to become a conference place, but was the theory behind that, Martin, that if you booked a residential place, you could get people accommodation cheaper than if you just left them to get hotels in a city somewhere? Apart from the benefits of being resident together.
I don't remember. I think it was largely the benefits of being resident together.
Yeah, okay.
And I think the other thing to remember is we don't charge for the meetups. So we do need some funds to keep, as we move forwards into perhaps, renting venues, hiring venues for meetups, but also for keeping Zoom and Eventbrite meetup going as well. They do charge us to use both of those, obviously. So that's what else the money is used for. But yes, I believe there are conversations about next year's conference, but I'm not sure if there's anybody from the perfectly fair to have a float, says Carrie. Thank you. I don't know if there is anybody here from the current conference organising team. Yeah. Would you like to say anything? Yeah.
Paul and I are here. I don't know if Paul wants to say anything.
Oh, can do. You can correct me whatever I get wrong. So our dates are the 21st and the 22nd of April. Our host city is going to be Birmingham. Our venue still to be confirmed. We've started putting feelers out there for anybody who wants to host any of the sessions. So we did that this morning in kind of our reflection session and so forth. We will be continuing with the idea of bursary. If I was sensible, I would have the title, but Paul, we're looking at celebrating the diversity within facilitation.
The longest conversation we've had is there were some very good comments from last year about the fact that, if you like, the edges of the tent had been widened a bit from just being the IAF conference. It was a conference of IAF and all sorts of people, and that produced all sorts of richer conversations. And certainly we've been talking about intentionally going even further that way. And if I could remember the title we've picked, it has a strap line. Instead of saying the IAF UK conference, it says a conference or an event hosted by IAF and friends.
Yeah.
And that's not to devalue IAF. It's to say, look, the walls of the tent are open, and we're talking actively with a couple of people about, how could we make this more accessible to people who are in-house facilitators, which is a difficult area. But also getting people along, as we did last year, more from the voluntary sector and other areas, and experience some of that diversity of the community, and acting as a catalyst to encourage facilitation in all its forms.
And we're trying to reduce actually the use of the word facilitation, because as Paul kind of alluded to, that people who do this style or type of work actually don't use that word. It's what they don't. Yeah. So so watch this space. If you are interested and you do want to get involved, run one of the sessions, or even be on the planning committee, please give us a shout. You can give me, my email is underneath my chin. So keep save the dates.
Great, thank you, Paul and Paul. It's almost compulsory, it seems, to be called Paul on this call, because I don't know if Paul said Jackson's still here. Anyway, so Kat, was there anything else on the finances?
Unless anybody's got any more questions, I don't think so. I think if we're asked to, we need to submit that, I think, don't we, again in the new year to release global pittance of a
yes
that they give us.
We can apply chapter development funds, I think they're called.
Yeah. So yeah, it hardly seems worth the effort. But then I guess it is worth the effort because it's free money. Well, it's not free money, is it? I mean, we're all paying a lot towards global fees. I shall stop talking.
Thanks, Kat.
Conversation for the social after, maybe.
Yeah.
After. Yeah. So I think actually before we do have a plan to send you into breakout groups if you'd like to. I just wanted to check whether there were any questions, additional questions to those that have been asked already. Carrie.
I don't really have a question, but because I'm going to have to go in about 5 minutes anyway, so apologies, because I hate it when people go when you're just about to go into the breakout rooms, because that's the best bit. But just to say, this all looks incredibly well organised and thought through and collaboratively developed for the good of the network and for the good of the group of everyone here and facilitators in the UK and beyond. So just well done, folks. I think compared to the AGMs I attended or took part in many years ago, I think that the IAF England and Wales is just, it continues to grow in strength from the great foundations that it had. So keep up the good work, team, and sorry I can't be more involved.
Thanks, Carrie. And yes, you've been plenty involved in the past, so it's been nice to have you on board, if not now. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? So Simon is also going out into the streets of Colchester.
Busking.
Lucky. I don't know what to say about that. That sounds like fun.
Evening market stall at the German market in Colchester.
So what I thought we would do is so we are due to run till 7:30, but I don't think we will need to run till 7:30, but perhaps we could give people 10 minutes in breakouts. Would that be useful? And I've just put these questions up, partly because it's sometimes nice to have questions to talk about, but also because we'd actually quite like to know the answers. So what is the best thing for you about being part of IAF England and Wales? What do you appreciate about other networks, groups or teams that they do that we could be doing? And what would you like to see in 2023? I will paste them in the chat in a second, Paul. Good idea. Hang on a second. I'm going to have to just grab the slides, make them smaller. Hang on a second. Here we go. I'll put them in the chat for you.
Helen, I'm also going to go, so kick me out of a breakout.
Okay, I'll just keep kicking all sorts of people out. I'm going to stop them.
Yeah, and I'm still here, but I need to go for a minute and back
Helen
again.
can do the breakout room with whoever's left.
Yeah. Who else is going?
I'm going in 5-ish minutes.
I'm not going, but I'm going and coming back. So leave me out for breakout, and I'll be back.
I'll need to go shortly, but I'd like to stay for the breakout.
I'm just going to shove you in rooms, and you can.
Rooms,
and we can do whatever.
I don't think we need to break out rooms. There's that many.
Right.
Good to let Helen.
Oh, I don't want to. I want you to all assign yourselves. How can I haven't done this for a while, obviously, clearly.
There's only 9 of us here.
Just split it in half, Helen.
Oh, there we go.
Can you move yourselves around?
Yes, we can choose.
There we
There we
go.
are. So there's going to be random. Are we going to have 3 rooms or 2 rooms? 3 rooms.
Who do I want to be friends with?
Let's see what happens. Choose your person.
You lot.
Thanks, Helen. Bye, everyone. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
I was just mid-flow there of saying,
Oh,
Cat will sort it out.
that's always the way. Welcome
Because you
back.
abused your power and interrupted all of our conversations.
no.
Did you hear I tried to do the broadcast
We
voice.
heard that. Heard that. Yeah.
First time I've done
I
that.
think there should be a little bing bong on it before someone speaks, because Paul was doing it earlier and he gave you a big shot. It should
I
have a
got
lot.
really excited when I was facilitating a workshop recently and found it, and then realised I'd interrupted everybody when I put them into breakout rooms to have a really serious conversation. I was like, not a good time to experiment with the new Zoom feature that I've
That's
got.
why I thought I'd try now.
Yeah, no, I should have picked my moment a little bit better. I did apologise to everybody.
So any kind of what did you talk about? It'd be nice to have a little bit of that 3 minutes, 5 minutes, a little bit of what did you talk about?
It's the people stuff, isn't it? It's the people. It's the place to go where it's your tribe, especially where you don't have that, like in your company, lots of facilitators. But and we said that again in our session, didn't we, Kat? And Michaela said that she's coming back into it after a while. Certainly, that was the tone of our conversation, I think.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. Anybody else want to share?
We talked about community, how it's the thing we appreciate a huge amount, and the sharing within the community. Yes, it's a community that's in a constant state of flux. There are some who are there and kind of flow through longer. When we talked also about the word facilitation and how it's used and sometimes not understood and so forth, and maybe about talking to other branches of the IAF in different countries where it's even more challenging. What do they use to break down that barrier or increase the understanding?
Interesting.
Cool. Thanks, Paul.
No.
And Adrian, Lee's
gone, so I can say whatever I want now, can't I?
Yeah, you can claim anything. Adrian.
It's fine. So everything everyone said before, probably a couple of the additional points were probably around the flexibility we have to try stuff out. You know, a lot of other networking groups and professional bodies are quite use the phrase, you know, the rails are set. You can't really deviate much. But he was mentioning we did as the Northern meetup group, we experiment every so often. We did a faith in facilitation theme session earlier this year that really sparked off a lot of interest in lots of different quarters on and offline. And you know, Lee was saying that he can't imagine that could have been so easily just done in any other professional body that we have. And that's one part. And the other part of it as well is kind of going back to thinking about the relationship with IAF Global. And I was sharing that I'm not a member because I'm still trying to reconcile a business case, you know, and as Kat was sharing in the financial statements, it's not even that I could say, well, at least most of my membership fee comes back. It doesn't actually, just doing a quick head count on the numbers. So most of it doesn't come back. So what's that? And then we're also reflecting to say when I'm bidding for contracts, I don't get asked for the qualifications or certifications, but maybe there's something there about the push-pull mechanism that says if there could be more recognition, because we understand IAF Global has large corporates do go to IAF and say, show us your kind of your special team that you've stamped for quality. If we could see something like that scaled out on a country basis, then you know potentially that really opens up, because there's a stronger business case that says if we want to get work or want to be more credible in getting work because we're being asked more, because someone sold them the benefits of being IAF stamped.
Martin?
You might find, Adrian, that you get even more referrals and even more inquiries when you're a member and a CPF.
Or an endorsed or whatever.
It's hard for me to say with confidence that any proportion or any number of the inquiries and referrals I get are because of that, but I'm pretty sure some of them are. I'm pretty sure
maybe this is it. Maybe this, you know, I always kind of say every year I try and challenge myself to try something different in my business model. Last year I tried SEO, which although it pushed me up the rankings on first pages on everything, didn't make any difference in terms of inquiries. But you know, because I've been a control group on myself for a couple of years, I can now actually have a decent experiment.
Maybe this is the year, Adrian, that you might try and see what happens if you become an IAF member.
And now and because you with foresight recorded this session, and I've said it,
we
and
can
it's been
play it
recorded
back
for
to you next year.
We'll remind you said that. Just wanted to check in, Kat. Oh, go on, Paul. Sorry.
I was going to say it's a really valid question, though, Adrian. As we start to think about a wider community conference, there is a question there about how do we convey the value we feel from being closer into the tent or not, without making it seem like that's the intention. I mean, I know I get value from having the badge, but I think it's more curiosity from customers. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know you could do that. But it's one of the conversations we have to have about the conference as we widen the tent. What space do we give to the accreditation? We're in a balanced way. It's a conversation we're going to have, I think.
I appreciate that there is a bursary scheme for the accreditation, but from what I've heard about it, it's a lot of money for people to spend, and I've heard, fairly recently heard somebody's very stressful experience of it. So it's not something that I'm really put myself through, I don't think, for that amount of money, at the risk of then ending up in this cycle of then having
CPF is not an insignificant investment.
No.
I don't know about the endorsed one, but I'm not sure that's the main conversation for today. But it may be something we want to understand better. What are those levels? Martin knows them all, but I didn't know them. I don't know.
Well, Simon's your man. He's just been elected. Global director of all this stuff.
Well, ask Simon. Yeah.
Any other thoughts, Kat? Because I know you obviously were having.
No, just echo what Paul had, and in terms of other learning from other networks, Nicola said, the networks she's involved with, they bring in people with specific expertise, not necessarily. It would, in this case, not necessarily facilitators, but people who would be interesting to hear from or have a session from. So it might be to give a bit of thought to that. Is there any? That might be a way of drawing people in as well. And for her personally, there was the thing around joining up more with what we're doing again in 2023. So
brilliant, thank you. And Hilary, I know you popped out and we were just chatting at the end. Anything to add before we wrap up?
Not really. Well, I've booked that room for the 13th of January for the IAF leadership team. I know that's not the question you asked me, but I'm just telling you. And I'm forwarding it to you, Helen.
So, it's not the topic of the meeting. Is that definitely going ahead? I was asking on Lumio earlier.
And yes,
right.
I think so.
Where is it going ahead?
In Birmingham. We can talk about it at the next leadership team meeting, perhaps, or anyway, maybe we could.
13th of January, which is a Friday, in Birmingham at the Friends of the Earth building.
Right. Okay.
Which is very central. So
the only knowing this day, someone asked me to do a workshop the day before in London, and I said if it's in the afternoon, yes, because then I can go up to Birmingham possibly.
I'm going to double the 13th face to face because it's pantomime opening night. So
yes, well, you could do it hybrid because they do have.
Well, let's talk about that in the leadership phase, because I'm aware that not everybody here is in the leadership and wants to know what our plans are to do a retreat in January. Anyway, so I'm going to stop recording now and say thank you very much, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
Hearing all about our stuff, asking good questions and getting stuck in. And I am going to say goodbye and stop recording.